And welcome to Economically Empowering Our Community right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We're broadcasting live. We've been seen all over the world in over 139 countries. If you're watching us on Facebook, share this program with your friends and families. Send us stars. If you're watching us on YouTube, share the program. Hit the notification button so that you won't miss any of these informative programs. It's a beautiful day, Marcus, in Jackson, Mississippi.
It
How
sure
have you
is.
been?
Been good, been good, been good. As we promised the listening audience that we would bring in impactful guests, and it took us a while, but I feel we got a good one here today as our very first one.
So we talk about impactful. There are some individuals that have had great impact on this state of Mississippi over the years. And we go back as far as Robert Clark and that gang of folk that came in and fought through some unimaginable difficulties just to be able to try and represent Black America and Black Mississippi. Now, our guest this evening is no stranger to the struggle.
Not at all.
And not afraid of the fight.
Not at all.
So, Robert, welcome to Economically Empowering Our Community.
Welcome.
Well, thank you both for having me. And I'm always interested in being in part of any organization or program that talks about economic empowerment.
Well, we're going to get right into it now, but before we get into it, though, I think it would be a disservice to our community if you don't share with our viewers and our listeners out there a little bit about who you are, where you came from, the old Southern tradition, who your folk,
Okay,
and stuff like that.
that is important. We don't talk about that enough. I'm a native of Natchez, Mississippi, born and raised there, finished high school there. My mother was an educator, eventually was a superintendent of schools in Adams County. My father was a contractor, was a bricklayer and a cattle rancher. So I grew up working the summers on construction sites, working as a laborer on a brick crew. And then on the weekends, we raised cattle, upwards of 150 head of cattle. Every weekend we worked, bale hay, did all those things, strung barbed wire. So my dad was intent on making us understand how much and how important hard work was. We raised gardens every summer. Enough to make me understand that maybe I may want to try to do something else. And so as much as I cherish that, and we still do, we still are involved in land acquisition and farming. But I'm a lawyer by trade. I was trained. I went to Washington University undergrad in St. Louis and University of Illinois Law School. But immediately after law school, came back home to Mississippi, worked for the Attorney General's office for 4.5 years, and then I spent a half a year as the legal counsel for the Department of Transportation, state of Mississippi. I went into private practice. I've been in private practice as a lawyer ever since, first in Jackson, then moved back home. Ran for the Senate in 1991, got elected, served from 92 to 2011, and I mean to serve for 11 years in the state Senate, and was afterwards was elected to the state house in 2004, and I've served in the state house for the last 22 years.
Wow.
Wow. And I've had a great experience there. I've been vice chair of judiciary in the Senate. I've been chairman of the Department of Transportation, chairman of transportation in the House, vice chair of Medicaid, and ad hoc member of as a representative from the Senate on the retirement system. So there's a lot of experience, a lot of work involved in trying to improve our communities, and still committed to that effort.
Well, as Robert, as we try to empower our communities, we're trying to educate as well. And you've worn several hats.
Yeah.
At the Capitol, and presently you're the House Minority Leader.
That's correct.
Can you explain to the listening audience exactly what that duty entails?
Well, I'm the House Leader for the Mississippi House of Representatives Democrats, and we're the minority party in the House of Representatives, in a House that not only we're a minority, but they have a supermajority in the House. So Republicans have enough votes to do just about anything they want to do. But our job is to make sure that we protect the rights and the interests of the people from our districts, the people who don't have hired lobbyists up there being paid every day to make sure things go their way. And we have done if I must say so myself, an admirable job. We have 42 members in the House Democratic Party, and we don't always have all those members voting with us. And we talk about that sometime too, but we constantly push the issue and find ourselves understanding how to navigate the system enough to build coalitions across the aisle to make sure that certain things happen in the way it should. So my job is to make sure that the Democratic that the voices of the people we represent as Democrats are heard in the House, and to make sure that we maintain as much of a position of power as we can. And so that's what we do.
Well, I tell you, you have a tough assignment, but I have to be honest with you. I see that we've come a mighty long ways,
Yes.
but I think I'm experiencing some slippage. I think that we're seeing some erosion on some of the gains that your father and your mother fought for down in Natchez, Mississippi, in
Yes.
that time, in that period of time, for them to be able to become a contractor and a superintendent of schools and to raise a lawyer. I don't see that happening in the generations. I don't see them having the same opportunities.
Well, part of it is that we've gotten complacent, and both of you all are people who are business people and contractors. And I tell people all the time, nobody had to tell my parents how important it was to establish yourself economically and make sure that you had opportunities available to you. But we have a generation now that don't understand how important your vote is and how important that is to your own economic stability. People always talk about entrepreneurship and how important entrepreneurship is, and everybody thinks that means that you got customers out there in the private sector. I want everybody to know this, and I say this everywhere I go because people need to understand this, and you all know this. People who have become billionaires and successful business people in this country, for the most part, have made their money on government.
Absolutely.
The biggest supplier of economic opportunity is the government. And so when you see, people talking about they're billionaires or they've made their way, you see these car dealerships and these car companies out here, you think they survive you coming and buying an individual car here and there. No, they make their money on fleet services. They make their money on selling not one car, overpriced car to you as an individual. They make their money by selling 20,000 cars to the government. They do that. And they don't just do it nationally. In the state of Mississippi, if you see the Hinds County Sheriff's Department or the Hinds County Police Department, you look at what brand car they're driving, they're driving the same one. That means they bought all those cars from the same people. And those people are located wherever they are being governed. And so when we hear Republicans, we hear people talk about we want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. The only bootstraps we're missing is the opportunity to have the entree into the door to talk about where those contracts are and how we make money on the state of Mississippi. One of the things I used to have a big fight with leadership in the House and the Senate about, and I continue to have that same fight, whether it be Democrat or Republican. I always tell them, look, we want to be involved or either in control of where the money is spent. In this state, money is spent on healthcare and spent on transportation. If people always ask me, why aren't you on the education committee? I say, because the education committee has no latitude. Their budget is set. They do what they want to do. They spend money. But the Department of Transportation spends close to, some years up to $2 billion a year, but always in between $1 to $2 billion a year. The Department of Medicaid spends $9 billion a year. Our state budget is 7.2. Our Medicaid budget is higher than the state budget. So you can imagine the kind of money we're spending with people who are out there who allegedly call themselves individuals in entrepreneurship, but they're making money on government. Wow. Transportation the same way. And so what I'm saying is, until we start recognizing where you get stability, economic opportunity, and we got to take advantage of that. And we'll continue to lose. And that's why when people say, oh, it doesn't matter about my vote. Yes, it does. Yes, it does, because you got a Marcus Wallace who's running his own business in your community. You got a Socrates Garrett who's running their own business. That means that's money that's flowing back into your community, flowing back into your churches, flowing back into your public parks and your public youth athletic leagues. All those, I can tell you, as a lawyer in a small private practice in Natchez, when I made money, everybody else did better because I gave money to the churches. Right. When I would give money to people who needed to youth programs, all those things. And that's what people have in their communities. And we need to start recognizing that's why when people start talking about registering people to vote, no, we just need to get the people we already got registered to go out to vote to make sure that you have some impact and some say of how your outcome is.
That's right. That's right.
So the local elected officials understand what you're saying?
I can tell you, I've been, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. People are already mad at me, but Hinds County has the largest delegation in the House of Representatives, has the largest delegation of representatives in the Senate. If they would unify and make sure that they put some pressure on the House to do the things they need done, they would ensure that the things that they deserve to have come to their communities would happen. But that kind of unity we cannot see because everybody seems to think that it all boils down to what I can do right here, right there, whether I can get $1 million here or $400,000 there. And I'm telling you, when you look at Tate County, it has 28,000 people that has gotten an appropriation of over $38 million 2 to 3 times in the last 5 to 6 years. And Hinds County is fighting to get 10 million, and it has 5 times the population the state of that Tate County has. Then you look, you shouldn't be begging. You should be demanding. You should be stomping your feet saying, look, this is the capital city. If Tate County can get 38 million, that means we ought to be getting 150 million every year.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all are taking notes tonight. We told you we're going to bring you real conversations, real facts, and uncut. And you are getting some real facts tonight. So I hope you all are taking notes. Robert, if you will repeat again what you said. Hinds County has what?
Has 5 times the population of Tate County. Tate County, over the last 5 to 6 years, has gotten over, well, close to $200 million. Hinds County has barely scratched the surface at 50 million. And they have 5 times the population of Tate County.
You said something very important a few minutes ago when you mentioned about the importance of voting. You know, one of the slogans that I've been talking almost till I'm blue in the face is, you know, y'all gotta vote. That's what I, even when I ran for Mayor Jackson, that was one of the slogans I used. But the new, I've amended that now, and I'm saying y'all gotta start voting.
Yes,
because we gotta start voting. All of this stuff we can get a handle or resolve some of these issues if we start voting.
If you want better places to go, better streets, better schools, if you want a water system that works, if you want all of that. And look, it sounds like it's, well, we've done that, we've asked for that. No, you hadn't. Look, everybody criticized the city of Jackson, but look, the state has all of their office buildings downtown. They have not paid $1 of state fees in lieu of taxes. State office buildings don't pay any taxes. 28,000 employees downtown Jackson. All the stress that you could have on the water system, the streets, the roads, and everything. And the state won't help you with that. And the state won't give the city that. And then they blame the city, say about the leadership. You can't lead when you don't have resources. You can't make anything happen when you don't have money. And they give money. Look, if you want to know what money will do for you, look at the money they spent in Madison County and Rankin County. In Rankin County, they built roads to nowhere. They built thoroughways. They built connections to communities that don't even exist yet. But you can guarantee yourself, if you build it, they will come. But they won't give that kind of latitude to the city of Jackson. City of Jackson, no, we begged for years, not begged, fought to get money for the water system in Jackson. The state wouldn't give it to them. Suddenly, the federal government gives Jackson over $800 million, $1.4 million total. And all of a sudden, the state suddenly now wants to have some say in how Jackson operates their water system. You know why? Money. Money will get you allies and dictators anytime you want them. But as long as you got it, you can make something happen.
Wow. Marcus, this is the kind of information that we promised.
Meat on the bone.
Meat on the bone.
We got meat on the bone tonight, y'all.
Now we're going to keep digging, though. It is said that Black men or abandon the Democratic Party, that more black men are migrating to the Republican Party than ever before. What say you about that?
I think that's a falsehood. I think there was a disproportionate number of black men who did not vote for Kamala Harris, but that's part of the misogyny we have in our community. That the understanding, I talked to a number of young black men who said they just didn't want to vote for a woman. They just didn't, and they identify with men. They identify with their sexuality before they identify with their race and their community, and so that's a problem. But it's not a proliferation of a problem. They're probably 10 to 12%, which is some fall off. We see that in the legislature. We got people with bad understanding everywhere, but I think people are beginning to understand that kind of thinking doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't serve your purposes. And I don't think there's a move to the Republican Party. Now, let me say this now, before I get ahead of myself. This new decision out of Supreme Court on collide. There are activists, there are people in our community who say, well, if that's what they're going to give us, how is this any different than where we were in 1968 when we were trying to be Democratic and get seated at the Democratic convention, and the Democrats didn't want us. So maybe we need to infiltrate the Republican Party and say, if this is the party we got to be in to get elected, then we're going to be in it, but we're going to stay true to our principles. Mm-hmm. So there's something to be said for that too.
Well, you brought it up and the Supreme Court decision. So if in fact the minority population is diluted in a way which it cannot select its own representation, the only other strategy then is to infiltrate and choose the less of two evils.
Yeah, well, we could do that, but I can tell you, I said that rhetorically because I know there's some thinking out there, but I don't think we're even close to that yet. Because let me say this about the Supreme Court decision. So the Supreme Court said you could not consider race if you're determining how you're going to draw a district, but you can consider party. African Americans make up 40% of this state, at least 40%. I would always venture that it's even more than that. And so when they start talking about not considering race, African Americans are 90% of the Democratic Party are African Americans. 70 or 80%, probably close to 80% of the Republican Party are white. And so when the Supreme Court says you can't consider race, if you can only consider party. If you gerrymander based on party, you're going to be gerrymandering based on race. But again, let's go back to this. Tell me, as people like Shad White and other people are saying, well, now let's see if we can get rid of Benny Thompson in the 2nd district. Well, tell me where you're going to go in the 2nd district. Do you think that Michael Guest wants any more black folks in his district? No, he doesn't. We tried to give them to him. He wouldn't take them. You think Trent Kelly wants any? No, he doesn't. Because we tried to give him some. They don't want them. And so when they start talking about doing something to Benny Thompson, they can't hurt Benny Thompson without hurting the people that they elected. Because when you take people from Benny Thompson, you make all those Republican districts competitive. And when I say competitive, you make them districts that white people or Republicans can't walk around endorsing every racist, every detrimental policy that Donald Trump adopts, because now they got to face people who could actually get them beat. And so before we start retreating to our last alternative, the first thing we got to recognize is, let us see where they got to go. Mississippi has gerrymandered themselves into racially or if you say partisan districts for the last 20 years, to the extent that they're so packed that the Republicans have gotten so comfortable in it, they have benefited more from the Voters' Rights Act than we have. They have a supermajority in both houses, except they don't in the Senate and only by one vote. And I tell people this has not been just since the Republicans have been in power. When the Democrats were in power and the white Democrats were in power, they spend more time protecting white Democrats under the Voting Rights Act by packing districts with white people and packing black districts with black people instead of making competitive districts. Nobody black who's worth their salt needs 75 or even 65% to win an election. You want somebody who is smart enough and intelligent enough to work the entire community. That's why we were able to elect in this last redistricting we did, the court order redistricting. We had 3 senators and 1 representative elected, all Democrats, all black, and not one district was more than 53% African American.
Well,
Wow.
here's what gets me when you talk about percentages and statistics. I personally have a problem with authorities, commissions, and boards because I think that that's their way of trying to control. Okay, we often use the slogan here on the talk show: "The math ain't mathing." And what I mean by that is, you take Jackson for instance. Jackson is 80% African American. Well, in my opinion, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think the makeup of authority boards and commissions should be 80%. There should be 80% representation. But it's weird. It's very weird that the 20% or whatever Caucasians here in the city of Jackson are the ones that have the majority. You take the authority committee that they created on the water side in the beginning when they first started dealing with the water issue. You got three Republicans, two of them represent the coast and Hattiesburg and Petal. You got one independent who more than likely probably would vote Republican. You had one African American from the Hinds County delegation on the board who's a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
That's a setup to fail right there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of these boards, commissions, that's a good example. But I mean, I would even bring it closer to home. Look at the Central Planning and Development District, and both of you all have had experience with it. And there's a ton of money that comes to those districts. But you know, Hinds County allegedly, I don't know what the vote is, but say Hinds County has 3 votes. But if Rankin County and Madison County have 2, and who else is it? Copiah County, wherever the district, whatever it is, Hinds County is sort of the black county out there by themselves. And so they may have more votes, but collectively everybody else has more. And then you see where the money is spent.
Oh yeah.
You see where the money is spent. It's not spent in Hinds County. Goes back to your 80% issue. So if we make up 80% of the planning and development district, how does 70% of the money get spent around us and not spent with us? And so I go back. Frederick Douglass said it more than 100 years ago. Power yields nothing without a demand. It never has. It never will. I've been in boardrooms as a lawyer, and I've been in committee rooms as a legislator. People don't seem to recognize how important it is to demand and to ask. You're not going to get penalized for saying what you want. But we got so many people that these people in your audience elect who sit quietly and watch themselves get run over. You don't have to do anything but say, this is what I want. This is what I got to have. I've done it. And I'm going to tell you, I don't get everything I want, but I get a whole lot farther than I do if I just sat silently.
And this is one of the main reasons why we created this show. You mentioned earlier, you said you can't lead without resources.
Yeah.
Well, local businesses can't survive without getting opportunities. And so this is where we are. You know, if you think about it, when is the last time a school has been adopted in the city?
I don't know.
You know,
it's
been a long time.
I haven't heard about it.
Right. And it's hard to do things like that, you know, if the opportunities are not being afforded to the local business. I really think the local business community is the heartbeat of any municipality or local area. And when you look at these percentages, they're at an all-time low. Well,
you know, one of the things, and I have a lot of hope for the new leadership. I was, you know, I liked the last mayor. I thought that he had the ability to do a lot of good things. But one of the things I'm hopeful about for the city of Jackson is that that we have a mayor that he has shown himself to understand how important economic empowerment and stability is in this community, and that he is committed to making that happen. We get, you know, people are, I know the immediate concerns for a lot of people boil down to the services that rightfully so they should be concerned about: public safety, public health, public education, and you know, public works in terms of transportation, streets and roads. And all those things are very important to making sure your community works. But you also have to make sure that you start developing a plan to attract businesses and industry back to your area. And I can tell you that if you look around the country, whether it be St. Louis, whether it be Baltimore, whether it be Chicago, or whether it be what's the city in Indiana?
Gary.
Look at all those places. All those places find themselves. People will move out of those areas, but they all transition. People are going to begin to transition back into Jackson. It's how you want to position yourself for that to happen. Jackson is not the capital city by accident. If they wanted it to be in Pearl or Flowood, it would have been there. If it would have worked anywhere else. But Jackson is uniquely situated in the sense that, look, we're at the crossroads of two major highways going north and south and east and west. And we are on the right side, the non-flooding side of the Pearl River, to the extent more so than they are. And so Jackson has to come back. It's just a question of how much you drive that vehicle to make it come back.
Right.
Well, let me ask the question.
Yeah.
You know, it has to come back, but you know, on this show, we are going to be giving report cards on elected officials.
We need to.
You know, we're going to do that each quarter.
You
now,
need to do that.
I need to understand from you. I don't want you to grade anyone.
No.
But I want you to share with us who you think has been the most effective state representative in the state of Mississippi.
Well, you're asking the state representative to answer that question. As the chairman of the Democratic Caucus, my most effective member has been Brian Clark out of Holmes County. I would tell you that. I just think he studies, he understands the rules and the information as well as anybody. He's a person that's in my caucus that I can rely on to answer a question and be prepared to do what they have to do. He has been extremely effective without being a showboat, without being showy about everything that he thinks he needs to do.
So he's been very effective.
He's being very, very, very effective. Now, let me tell you what
I would have thought it would have been Ed Blackman.
You talk well, Ed Black. No, well, let me go back. If you talk about over time, Ed Blackman has definitely been the most effective legislator who has served. I mean, and that's no disrespect to anybody else, Robert Clark or anybody, but Edward Blackman, I can tell you, Edward Blackman, through legislative, judicial redistricting, has done more to improve the status and the well-being of African Americans in this state than anybody in the last 40 years. And
then a close second to him, in my opinion, would be Percy Watson.
Percy has been is extremely effective as well, and if for no other reason than his tenure and his ability to stay there as long as he has. He was chairman of Ways and Means for a number of years, and he was responsible for a lot of the gains that our HBCUs have had that they wouldn't have otherwise had, and a lot of black towns through the bonding process. Right. Yeah.
And one of the more vocal people now is Earl Banks.
Let me tell you what, Earl Banks in Hinds County has been the champion for Hinds County. He has done an effective job of making sure that Jackson and Hinds County is thought of first, and is the first person to raise his antenna when it feels like they've been taken advantage of. So wow. Yeah, you've named three warriors that have been very effective.
Now, the publisher of the Mississippi Link just put some information in front of us.
Yeah.
And I want you to take a look at it.
Yeah.
And those
are not new numbers.
Chris Young, a writer in the Mississippi Link newspaper, has shared this statistical information with us. I think this article is going to come out in the Mississippi Link in the next week or the week after that. But he knew that you were going to be our guest.
Yeah.
And we wanted to hit you with some statistics, some information that is just unimaginable. It's the poorest record that any state could ever have. And so you see it, don't you?
Yeah, I see it. I mean, it's not, these numbers have been consistent over the last 25 to 30 years. Well, these are not new numbers.
But our viewers are new to hearing it.
Yeah.
And so the deal is that I'm told here by this writer that the contract and expenditures in the state in 2025 is $5,519,862,146, of which white men got 95.9%, or 5,297,794,939 went to white men. Now hold up a minute. The total that went to minorities is 222 million of that 5 billion. But of the 222 million that went to minorities, 181 million of that went to white women that have been classified as minorities, leaving only less than 1% to go to African Americans in the state of Mississippi. And yet we have folk over on Super Talk, and we have folk at Jackson Jambalaya, and we have people that are hating on Black contractors who get less than 1% of expenditures by state contracts for goods and services. That is absolutely shameful and deplorable. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would agree. But I'm gonna go back to what Marcus and I were talking about earlier. People got to get out and vote. Now, you electing people that stand by and watch this happen. I don't blame the people who are in control, because if I were in control, I'm taking care of my folks. They taking care of their folks. But if you standing by watching them take care of your folks and not demanding that they take care of some of yours, then you electing people that do that. These numbers are not new. They've consistently, in terms of these percentages, been that way for at least 25 or 30 years. And we've been demanding that you do something different, that we do, and you won't have any control. I got in a legislative fight with my own Democratic colleagues 20 years ago when Billy McCoy was the Democratic Speaker of the House, because I went to Billy McCoy and said, look, I had these numbers. And he said, what do you want to see us do? I said, the reason these numbers are like that is because nobody Black is in control of healthcare. Now, you can find it, if you broke these percentages down, you're going to find most of those contracts going to be in healthcare and transportation. Mm-hmm. That's where they're going to be. That's where the money is. Well, and I said, until you get somebody in control of that Black who says that we got to start doing more business here, what we got to do, we won't do it. And he said, no, I can't. And Black, I said, look, stop talking about where he going to put me, where he going to, why don't you start talking about in terms of money, where the money is going? That's right.
So we're going to go to a station break, but when we come back, since you said that white folk, you don't blame them for taking care of themselves and take care of their constituents, I want you to answer the question, why are we not doing better where Black folks are in charge and in control of the politics? But we got to go to a commercial break and pay some bills. Y'all don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at Socrates Garrett ENT.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Say, man, you got to go in.
We're back.
I'm sorry.
Thanks again for the sponsors of this show. Also, I want to thank the publisher, Jackie Hampton, at the Mississippi Link for providing us with this information. It's critically important that we get this information out there. I want to thank the writer, Chris Young, for his diligent reporting and the deep dive that he's doing in minority contracting. And he's titled this An Assault on Minority Contracting. And thank you, Chris, for all that you do. Now,
Before we start, can we get this on screen? Can we get
I
this
believe
up?
so.
Okay.
Jordan, I think we would have to email it to you on that. I'll work with Jackie on that and see.
You got it on?
No, I'll call her and tell her to email it.
Yeah, I would like for the listening audience
Okay.
to get these numbers.
So before we went to break, you said that you didn't blame the white folk for
I said I don't blame them by themselves, because
Okay,
they're going to do what they're going to do.
They're gonna take care of themselves.
They're going to take care of themselves. But we got a responsibility to take care of ourselves.
So, but we're not.
We're not, because look, when you are in a minority in a legislature and they got the votes to do whatever they want to do, your biggest strength is unity and staying together. And so when we have the Speaker of the House, for instance, who's control of our budget, the Speaker of the House controls the House budget. The Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House control the Mississippi budget. That's just it. The governor has the last say. He can veto things. He can do whatever he wants to do. But when those two people control the budget, I've been encouraging and trying to instruct people. We have to be collectively solid in saying we're not getting our fair share. These numbers are not new to us. These numbers are not new to anybody who's elected to the legislature. But you got people who are saying, well, yeah, but I represent 25,000 people, and they tell me that we need to get so-and-so. We need to get about $800,000 because we got a water system we need to fix. And they say they're going to give me $800,000. I said, but what if we went in there 42 strong and said, we're not going to vote for anything? Look, you're going to always have some outliers in the Republican Party the same way. They're not getting what they need. And we collectively say, we got to have more. And instead of you getting 800,000, maybe you can get 1.6 million or 2 million. If we collectively say we got to have this, and the people who in the majority say we're going to do this, but you get your fair share. But if you're working as an individual, if I'm going as an individual from Adams County in District 94, I'm only going to get a pittance of what I need for District 94. I'm in a district with 25,000 people between Jefferson, Franklin, and Adams County. I guarantee you I got over $55 million in needs. But the most I've ever gotten is $3.5 million. I don't go in and asking for that. What I encourage my caucus to do is say, look, we gotta let them know that collectively you all haven't been ignoring our needs. You have been ignoring our business people. We've not getting the resources that we have. And I'm gonna defer to y'all in a minute, but let me say this. I give you a perfect example. We give the governor a certain amount of money that he has personally he can spend every year. He has over $120 million in the last 2 to 3 years. He's had over $120 million he could give to local counties or communities for their economic development, to build industrial parks. He has in the entire Delta, which is what I said we need you to spend money, economic development in the Delta and Southwest Mississippi. They have gotten over $4 million in Union County. There are about 13,000 people in Union County. That's more money than he's spent on industrial park development and grant provision in the entire Delta, the entire region where Benny Thompson represents.
Wow.
And so what I'm telling you is that, but I say that to say, when we start saying, Governor, where are you putting your grants? Where are you doing it? Bill Court, his economic development director, well, they hadn't been ready. They hadn't done everything they need to do. It's a grant program. That's what the purpose of the grant program is, to give them money to do what they need to do. You hadn't done it. The governor finally relented and said, I have not done all I need to do in the Delta area. We're going to start spending some money there. But let me tell you how disingenuous that proposal was, that they hadn't done what they need to do. When they wanted to do a battery plant up in Marshall County. Now, it's a black county. And people think they were doing it for Marshall County, but it's a battery plant. Anywhere they want to build anything that's going to be like a battery, that's going to have some environmental impact or that kind of thing, they're going to do it in a black county. But the work is going to come out of DeSoto County. You know that, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to come across the border. So anyway, they did that project up there. They spent $20,000 an acre on 720 acres to build them an industrial park to do that. Now, if you telling me that if you bought 720 acres at $20,000 an acre in Hinds County, damn it, you could build a brand new city.
You can.
I'm just saying, if you spend money, you're gonna make money. But they don't spend money with us. Right. They brought that data center in the Madison County, brought it right up to County Line Road. Yep. Brought all the property right there up to county. Wouldn't buy none of black folks' property just across the road. Wouldn't buy none of it. And then they got up there and built it. And then they said, well, we're gonna do something in Washington County. You building a new power plant in Washington County, and Energy is building one, but they're gonna have 2 fewer employees than they had before. And you know why they building it up there? They should have built it in Madison. They built it up there with no real employees. They're building it up there because of the power plant. They don't, and Madison County doesn't want an area, but it's gonna provide power for the data center. And people in Madison County said, well, if they want to get jobs at the data center, they just move to Madison County. No, they want to stay in Washington County. And they want you to build what they could build there. But this is the kicker. So once they started building it and the research came out, I kept asking them the question. You say you're going to employ 1,000 people. There's not a data center. The largest data center in the country only employs 400 people. How you going to employ 1,000 people? They finally admitted that was the construction and preparing. You don't employ that many people at a data center, but you eat up a lot of energy and a lot of water. Then all of a sudden, the folks want to start complaining about that. I'm bringing it full circle to say this. So you know that everybody wants to build a data center in Mississippi now, but every data center that's been proposed since then has been in Black County, Warren County, Lauderdale, where in Meridian, where they got a black mayor, Clarksdale, where they got a black mayor. They want to go them all there. They introduced a bill in the legislature now. If you build anything, they defined it. They didn't say data center, but it's defined as a data center. Then 70%, 80% of your revenue has to go back to the state where they can help with the infrastructure. Now, Madison County can keep all their money, but if you building one in a black county, they want to take your money. They took 40% of the money that's coming in Claiborne County and spread it out. Don't give it Claiborne. They took $40 million from Claiborne County, Claiborne County $8 million. They living up under a nuclear plant, and they won't give them the money they need. And now they're building data centers that's going to suck all your water and your energy, and they're building them in black counties, and they want to tell you that 80% of that money you can't keep. You can only keep 20% of it. It didn't pass, but that's the kind of thinking we have. And our folks I'm going to say this critically. The people in my caucus, I tell them, you cannot sit quietly and watch this happen. 95% the white men, 3%, 222 million, 181 million to white women, $40 million to actual minorities who are African American or people of color.
So you're basically saying that the problem is the volume is low on the public and the private side, where the citizens and the politicians.
Yeah, but the citizens have to come out and vote and elect people. And I'm gonna tell you why that's important. Look at what we're doing. Willie Simmons was not a super progressive, throwing everything against the wall member when he was in the House. But since he's been Central District Transportation Commission, he's focused on making sure that black communities get roads that they ought to have, and black contractors get contracts. He's always done. I'm talking about a person. He's not Huey Newton. He's just a black person who grew up in Central Mississippi, who understands how important it is for black business to make money. And that's all. If you can just elect people who understand and live in your community, who care about it, they can make sure something happens. You can't do that sitting at the house.
That's right.
Wow, a lot of information.
A whole lot of information that's being put out here this afternoon. I want to thank our guests for coming. I know this is a difficult subject sometimes for some elected officials, because you never hear of an elected official campaigning against another elected official. I guess there's some kind of a pact there that they won't do that. But he's here. And we're talking about these numbers.
I'm not campaigning against anybody, but you need to demand. If you elected somebody, you need to show them these numbers and say you got to do a better job
and speak up.
You got to let people know that. Don't let people walk through your communities handing out ham and turkeys and bread and saying they're doing something for you, when you could buy your own ham, turkey, and bread if they were providing you with the opportunity that you need to have.
I got to get back to the local community. Why we're not doing better at JPS the Airport Authority, Hinds County, and the city of Jackson. Why we're not doing better? Why these numbers don't look tremendously different in areas that we control? And then we want to know, why is it that there's so much voter apathy in the African-American community? Because a lot of people say their lives don't change. They don't see any reason, any justification for them to do anything. So they do what's called passive aggressiveness. They sit and they stay home. And so until we can show them, until I can point to African-American business that was created, that grew under certain specific leadership, then I don't have any examples to point to. If young African-Americans say, well, if Marcus and Socrates are catching hell, then I don't have a chance. I can't navigate the waters and the shark-infested waters that they have. Back in the day, had more help under mayor like Harvey Johnson and Maynard Jackson. Back at that time, when we had more help, when we came through, there was help. Our folk now don't see the help. And therefore, they don't come out and vote.
Well, a lot the apathy is justified, but what they need to understand, a lot of that is not just the mayor of Jackson or the board of supervisors. A lot of what impacts Jackson is what you do on statewide elections and legislative elections. You got to make sure you have people who collectively understand how important it is to work together. I would look. Jackson, Hinds County is unique. They're the urban area in the state. I don't have that problem in Adams County. I know what my mission is. I know what I'm supposed to do. But what has to happen in Hinds County, the only way they're gonna see a difference is they got to demand that the people they elect work together collectively as a unit to make something happen.
That's right.
It does no good for you to do something for Edwards or Utica or those areas, or do something for Northwest Jackson in a certain area when you're not collectively doing it. Hinds County needs to be collectively making a demand all the time as a collective force. And what all I see is a bunch of divisiveness in the legislative delegation, in the city council, and I'm just talking about as an observer and as the board of supervisors. I've watched them. I've watched as a legislature, as supervisors come up there and individually ask for certain things for their district. Now, can you think about how powerful it would be if all 5 supervisors came up and said, no, when they collectively, when they finish their demands, they end up demanding. I can tell you this because I've done the numbers, about maybe $15,000, $15 million.
Wow.
Collectively, they ought to be up here asking for $150 million every year. I'm talking about just because of the volume of work that has to be done in Hinds County, the number of people they represent, they need to do that. The Hinds County legislative delegation, I talked to somebody the other day. Well, I didn't get anything from my district. I said, Hinds County got something. You need to be working with everybody, not your district. You need to be able to say, this is what we did as a delegation. And that is not happening. There's no communication. When I objected to, in the State Affairs Committee, when I objected to the makeup of the water board, and the Hinds County legislator, Shauna Yates, was handling, she said, well, nobody's complained to me. And I went to the delegation and said, what are y'all doing? She said, well, nobody's talked to me. Well, damn it, you need to demand that somebody talk to you. You need to say, this is what I got to have. Don't let the state take over your water system. Don't let them do that. They didn't want it when it didn't have any money. Now they want it when it's got $800 million.
But don't our history tell us that we can't trust people to even consider an authority to manage Jackson's assets? Don't we know we can't trust them to do that?
That's what my history tells me. I don't know if everybody's paying attention to history.
Wow.
But you need to demand that they do. They need to do that.
Jordan, put that back on the screen for us. Okay, so Marcus, there you have it. So why don't you run through those numbers? Your eyes are a little bit stronger than mine.
Well, we have a total of $5,519,862,146 total. Of that amount, white men are afforded 95.9% of those opportunities. My total minorities, and that's including white women, afforded $222,067,939. Of that amount, $181,621,192 dollars is afforded to the white women minorities, and only African American minorities are only afforded about 1%, which is about $40 million of that. Those numbers are very, very, very sad.
But Mr. Garrett, you understand this better than I do. You know, that number, why white men, why not actual minorities? Well, you know, as an actual minority contractor, one of the first things you got to do is you got to get bonding and licensing and all those kind of things. That 95% white men, they're all part of the same network. They take care of each other. And that's one thing that's encouraging about John Horn. When he was in the legislature, he used to introduce legislation to provide actual support for minority contractors to make sure that they had equal access to bonding and insurance, even if they had, you know, bad credit and those, because all these guys, you don't think all these got perfect credit.
No.
They just got buddies who are in the business. So
Absolutely.
We don't have access to all that. So we got to make sure that we provide the framework to make, because the first thing they'll tell you is that, oh, you look like you do good work, but do you have a bond? Well, I can't get one because of whatever may have happened. You need to provide resources to make sure that you alleviate some of those problems. You got to understand what the problems are.
And we also need leaders on the other side who are willing to peel back the layers and understand that some of this stuff doesn't require a bond.
No, some of it doesn't.
If you just take the time and peel back, there's no law that says the garbage contract had to be a total of $10 million.
No.
You can break that down where people can kind of reach and grab it. And, you know, we talked a couple of shows back of, if we just start somewhere, even if we start with the $75,000, which only requires 2 quotes.
Yeah.
If you improve that amount as far as, you know, affording opportunities to African Americans, that would move the needle in itself.
But you go back to what you said earlier about boards and commissions, but they also do it with rules that they use. The rules are not consistent the way they use the rules and how they use. Like you said, if they would just pull back the layers and say, you didn't do it here, why are you doing it to me? Why is that happening? But again, that goes back to us just being cognizant of what the problems are, what the issues are, making sure that we do something about them and demand that we got more of a balance in what we do in these contracts. But $5.5 billion in contracting from the state of Mississippi. That's why I tell people, nobody's making that kind of money in the private sector.
No.
They're making that money on government.
And to the listening audience, we want you all to understand, this is why we're bringing impactful guests with these real numbers, because we gotta educate each other, and we gotta get more vocal. There's a African American muscle in this city. We just got to exercise and build on it. If we do it collectively, that's a key word now, collectively, because I think a lot of that is what's happening in this city and county. Everybody's doing their own thing. It's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. We just like they have a network that they didn't create. It's just by virtue of where they live, who they go to church with, and those kinds. We got to take advantage of our network.
Absolutely,
we got to do the same thing.
I hate we didn't have a copy of our contract, Socrates, for us to show Robert, you know, the contract that we're saying African American communities should sign, but it had a lot of those things that you mentioned in there. And black churches definitely one of them.
Well, these kind of programs are important too, because it gives a forum for people where you all can talk to people about what the issues are.
Well, we're going to bring the information out. We're going to do the same thing with each city in the state of Mississippi.
Right. That's wonderful.
We're going to break it down and see, how do you fare in Vicksburg?
Yeah.
How well do you do in Oxford?
Yeah.
How well are we doing in Natchez?
Yeah.
And we're going to see if this thing has any breakthroughs in it.
You will. Let me tell you what you'll find. All these cities they blame for not getting anything done. The cities who are successful, the states are always going to take care of Oxford. They're going to take care of Madison. Right now, they're beginning, because all the state leaders have come from Rankin County. They're going to take care of Flowood and Pearl. You know, they don't succeed because they're so great and they got great. They succeed because they're getting the resources to get it done.
Right.
They're getting the resources to get it done.
Right.
Wow. Marcus, I want to thank our guests for being here this evening.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I think we got to dig deeper.
Yeah.
I think we got to bring the intellect, the intelligence to the platform. We got to share with it. Sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes, it's going to have to say that it's an indictment on us in our leadership abilities
It's
and our
okay.
skills.
It is an indictment.
Sometimes we got to point that out.
Yeah.
And sometimes we got to make corrections at when we go and vote.
Yes, sir.
Not only do we have to get out and vote, but we got to vote for those individuals that have signed a contract with African American businesses to build an economy. Martin Luther King said it does you no good to have the rights to eat anywhere you want to if you can't afford the hamburger. So he understood it was about economics.
That's right.
Jim Evans on Straight Talk understands that the economy just doesn't happen. Somebody makes it happen.
That's right.
And so it's about the economy.
That's
Redistricting is about the contracts.
That's right. It's about the contract and again about the economy. That's
it's
right.
about the economy.
Right.
This is about where the money goes.
That's right.
5 billion to 40 million.
Oh, you can't. Yeah.
That's a huge spread.
Right.
So we're gonna have to dig deeper, Marcus.
And I think we also, at some point in the future, we're gonna have to bring you back, Rob.
Anytime.
I don't think this one show did enough justice, man.
We'll come. I'll come back.
It was very impactful, and I think it's definitely needed again.
I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed. I'm glad we're all on the same page, and if we continue to do this kind of work, we'll get it done. Yeah.
I have talked to Senator Derek Simmons.
Yeah.
I think he would be a good guest.
He would be.
I think he could speak the truth and stand up to the pressure as Robert has done.
Yeah, he'll
Absolutely.
be great. He'll be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To those of you that have joined us out there, we've been seen all over the world, as you know. We want you to support this program. If you're watching us on Facebook, share the program with your friends and family. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Our subscriber base is growing each and every day. We appreciate the support, and we're looking for sponsors. Maybe the state government could become a sponsor of this kind of a program. They sponsor Super Talk.
That's right. That's right.
They spend millions of dollars on Super Talk Radio.
To tell teenage women who don't listen to the show not to get pregnant.
Not to get pregnant. So we're gonna keep pushing until we get a breakthrough. Marcus, in the pod comments.
No, again, this is a very impactful show, and as you can see, we're trying to bring impactful guests with some real facts. And today, you all got some real numbers. It's my desire, my prayer that you all will continue to listen to this show, educate yourselves, appoint someone in the family to make sure everybody is registered to vote, and y'all gotta vote. Y'all gotta start voting. That's it.
That being said, good evening until next week.
Good evening.